Hello, everybody, and welcome to Rokai's Raid Guide for 10-man Heroic Heart of Fear boss Amber Shaper Unsuck. On this boss, it is by far the most difficult on the 10-man difficulty, so starting with this guide first, as I know many people are going to be challenged by this and have really the most difficult time on this fight throughout all of 10-man, you just don't have a ton of options to deal with each of the mechanics. Important clarification, I'm not going to be going over the responsibility inside of the construct. There are really great guides already out there that go over what to do if you are inside this construct, if you get that reshape life mechanic. I'll link those in the description below. Instead, I'm going to focus on who's responsible for what and the general strategy we use to take down this boss. So, first of all, starting with raid composition, we opted for 3 tanks and 3 healers. Reason for that is you're going to want somebody who's permanently in the construct. More on that in just a second. And then for the 3 healers, during phase 2, it's possible for one of your healers to get put into the construct. If you only ran 2 healers, that would only leave you with 1 healer responsible for the entire raid during 40 seconds of P2, which is possible, but extremely challenging. So to alleviate any mistakes or silly RNG wipes, we opted to have 3 healers. That way, if one of them gets picked by Reshape Life, you still have 2 to protect the raid. Just makes things a lot more consistent. If you have the ability to, I highly recommend 3 healing. While this is 2 healable, especially with the more gear you get, 3 healing makes it feel very free. Now, the third tank. This can be any DPS player. They do not need any tank gear. What you're going to be doing here is being the person permanently inside the construct to apply damage amp stacks to the boss. That will be your only responsibility. In this case, we opted for that to be our DPS warrior. You can see Nova W. He is an arms warrior typically, just went prot spec so that he could be put into the reshape life. More detail on that during phase 1 of the fight. This reshape life mechanic, the thing that puts you into the Amber construct, can only be cast on the tanks, which is why we have him go prot spec. It only picks tanks during P1, so we simply stay inside of phase 1 for as long as it takes for Nova W to be put into the construct. So, important note, phase 2 begins, even though I'm bad at drawing, phase 2 begins at 70% HP. You can see Reshape Life is still 13 seconds away in this case. We're going to break out our off-tank, Guru, and then we're going to stop damage on the boss and wait for this next Reshape Life to go out, because again, our goal for our comp was to get it onto Nova W. Once we have done that, we'll then move into P2 safely and leave Nova in the construct for the remainder of the fight. His only job, and you can see in the note up here as well, his only job is to stack damage amp on the boss. During phase 2, the temporary constructs have a different job, which we'll talk more about when we see that mechanic come out in just a moment. So, skipping forward to P2, a couple of added mechanics. The first is a tank/raid mechanic called Fling. The boss will pick a random tank, throw them at a ranged player outside the raid, stunning that ranged player for a couple of seconds and anyone near them. So healers and ranged players just be spread. The Amber Beam that existed in phase 1 remains in phase 2, as well as the living ambers that continue to spawn. Just like in 25-man, you're going to want to be killing these living ambers as close to your monstrosity tank as possible, making it easy and more convenient to pick up the puddles on the floor. Now, the responsibility of the person getting reshape life during phase 2, that is not your off tank, is to be always on the monstrosity and interrupting the monstrosity. So, you can see on the timers here, there's a couple of mechanics that are about to go out. First, Amber Scalpel. That's the beam that you just kite around that existed from phase 1 already. The healing debuff from phase 1, also going out. Ignore this. Reshape Life. Now in phase 2, this works slightly different. Reshape Life in phase 2 can no longer pick tanks at all. Instead, it'll pick any DPS or healer, ranged or melee, does not matter, in the raid. The person who gets this mechanic in phase 2 has a couple additional responsibilities. The first is to always be attacking the Amber Monstrosity. Right here, the giant glowy orb in the center of the room is the only thing that matters. Secondly, is one mechanic specifically, right here. It's 36 seconds away in this example, but it's the Monstrosity Explosion. Interrupting this is the only thing that matters when you are in the temporary suit. Outside of that, interrupt yourself when the cast goes off, hit the boss, exit before you reach 0 rage. That is all there is to it. Again, I know that's a very brief breakdown. There are other guides that go way more in depth with what to do inside the construct. Please go check out those videos for a more detailed breakdown on the construct mechanics. I just wanted to go over general strategy changes for 10-man. Now, as you continue the fight, 2 mechanics still to talk about for phase 2. The first is Massive Stomp. That's just a raid-wide, unavoidable damage that your healers will need to heal through. It's not too much. You don't really need cooldowns for it. Just be aware of it as a healer. And if you have a personal as a general raider, use it if you need to. Phase 2 is the most difficult phase of this fight. So, one thing that we did not do that could be very useful for everyone is lusting during phase 2. I just mentioned it. Phase 2 is for sure harder than phase 3. So lusting to get out of this phase quicker can be very useful. We chose to save it for P3 as we only had 4 DPS since we're 3 tank 3 healing, and it makes it easier to get out of that phase quicker. But lusting during P2 or P3, both are going to be completely acceptable. Do whatever is best or feels best for your raiders. Now, as we enter P3, there's only a couple of added mechanics, and genuinely is the easiest part of the fight. So, transitioning into P3, once the Amber Monstrosity dies, the raid is going to stack underneath the boss. Right? We're all going to be stacked, pop Lust, send every single cooldown, and you can see actually right now, we didn't do the greatest job of getting damage stacks on the boss. We got 40, which is okay. It's a 400% damage amp. If you guys play perfectly, you would actually want to see this probably closer to 60 or a 600% increase. Goes without saying, the more damage stacks you get on the boss, the easier and faster this boss will die. But we end up killing it in this video with just 40. Do your best. This is the responsibility, again, of the person permanently in the construct. Okay, changes for P3. 1 added mechanic, and then 1 slight change to how you handle the construct. So, the added mechanic... you'll see it on the timers come out here in just a second, but it is going to be 2 orbs that fixate on random players in the raid. That's similar to the Sinestro mechanic, those slicers, the Twilight Slicers. They're going to need to cross paths in order to disarm them, but if it hits you, it will wipe the entire raid. So I'll pause really quick. You can see the weak aura shows this beacon is on Vivid, and then beacon's going to go on nerfing as well. These are the orbs that I am talking about. They'll be on screen here in just a moment. This is the only new mechanic for P3. So I'll pause the video. Here you can see the beacons that it's referring to. Here and here. This beacon is fixated on our Warlock. This beacon is fixated on our Hunter. If the beacon reaches its fixate target, it is an automatic wipe. The entire raid will die. Other thing to note is that these beacons can touch any other player. So if this for any reason was brought through the raid, that is completely okay. That is not going to hurt anybody. The only thing that has to be avoided is the beacon reaching its fixate target. Now, the way to actually handle the mechanic is simple. The 2 people that are selected, in this case the Warlock and the Hunter, just need to make these orbs connect with one another. So it'll be hard to see as we go throughout the rest of the video because it gets kind of cluttered underneath the boss and raid stack. But what these 2 players need to do is cross paths. All right? This orb connected to the Hunter. The Hunter just simply needs to move this way, while we have the Warlock move this way, making these 2 orbs connect. If you do that successfully, they will disarm and no damage at all happens. So pay attention over the next couple of seconds. You'll see how these are moving. Just watch here and here. Our Hunter and Warlock cross paths right there at the end. And even though there's a giant explosion and everyone just got converted on my raid frames, just below the Warlock are the 2 orbs. Hopefully you can see it a little bit easier. Right here in the center, I know it's a lot of glowy yellow, the 2 orbs connected. You can see Vivid Lock and our Hunter nerfing had just crossed over here. It caused these 2 orbs to connect, and then they will disappear. That is the only new mechanic in P3. Just have those two players cross, negates the mechanic entirely. The rest of P3 is very simple. Now, construct change for this phase. If you get reshaped during phase 3, you're no longer going to be broken out. So no DPS whatsoever is being put into the new constructs or reshape lives. You're just going to be in there until you die. But the responsibility is much lower. As you get reshaped here, which you can see I am, there's nothing to interrupt. So you're just going to be meleeing the boss and pressing number 1 or your damage amp on him. The other thing, if there is a puddle down, you don't want to run out of energy because you will die. Try to make your way over to that puddle. However, if you can't, it's not the end of the world. Because of how much damage stacks are on the boss, it dies relatively quick. So you can even see we lost our warrior, we lost our resto shaman, and we're still going to end up getting a kill at the end of it. Because with that much stacks and lust going into it, phase 3 does not last very long at all. So that is the end of the fight. A couple things to go back over one more time. Purpose for 3 healing is only for P2. If one of your healers gets picked, it leaves you with 2 healers still to take care of the raid. We say we are 3 tanking, which is true, but remember one of them is a flex tank. It is just any DPS player that has the ability to spec into a tank spec so they can be picked. That person will be permanently in a construct the remainder of the fight. And P2 is by far the hardest part of the fight. Make sure your range players are spread, your tanks are taunting on the fling mechanic, and if you need to, use lust during this phase if you would like. Outside of that, there's a lot of chaos happening. Please, please, please check out some of the other videos that go really in depth on how to actually pilot the construct, as that will be arguably the hardest individual component of this fight. But for 10-man, though it's tricky, 3 tank, 3 heal really simplifies the rest of this. If you have questions, please leave them in the comments below. I'll try to get back to everybody and help you guys, and good luck as you proc this fight.